Happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic, whatever day you're watching this. Guys, if you're watching this show after it's gone live and you're getting blasted with ads, shoot a comment below, let me know. A lot of times YouTube will throw a ton of ads on a live show, and it just means that I haven't had a chance to go through and manually manipulate any of that stuff. So, with all that out of the way, thanks for stopping by. So we're going to talk really quickly about, well, the last of the Hemis. The Hemis are gone. Well, sorta. At least that's what we're being led to believe. And, well, let's just, I guess, for the sake of argument, let's say that it is over with. Let's say that the era of the Hemi is behind us. How do you feel about that? One of the weird things that's come up just in the chit chat, a lot of time, let me reset for a minute. A lot of the questions I've been asking, or that I've been answering over the years that I've been doing this, and the question that's been asked the most is always modifications to the 5.7 Hemi, and then it would be the 6.4 Hemi. At this stage of the game, guys, with the Hemi going away more than, well, at least for the cars. We don't know quite yet about the trucks, but is this a bad thing? Well, yes and no. Guys, look, I've had an opportunity to sample what the new Hurricane HO engine can put out. If that engine gets put into a car, it will absolutely end the discussion of whether or not having a Hemi is a good thing. I'll put it to you another way. Everything that you could do to modify a 5.7, even just comparing it to the Hurricane 6, which I think is going to be rated somewhere around 430, 440. Guys, do whatever you want to a 5.7. Line it up against that Hurricane, which is a lighter engine, makes significantly more power than even relatively well massaged 5.7s. And the difference will be frightening. But even scarier still, compare what that HO will do. I'm talking about the HO Hurricane inline 6. Compare what that would do to your beloved 392. Guys, I'm not even going to mix words here. Abysmal will be the outcome for the driver with the 392. And I'm not saying that for effect. The way that the Hurricane produces power, the way that it absolutely rips on the big end, I'm more inclined to say that it will perform more like a Coyote engine with significant modifications than the 392, which is another way to say that on a highway pull, which, let's be honest, this is where all of these contests happen, at least it seems that way, it will be up, gone, and out the damn vision, the view of that car. It will be over the horizon. And that's the scary part. Is it a good thing that the Hemi's going away? Man, yes and no. I hate to see that the V8 is going away. I'm not, fellas, truth be told, I'm not a Hemi fan. If you've ever hung out with me for any real length of time on this show, I've got like 800 live shows, averages about an hour to an hour and a half. Anyway, you'll get the idea that from old school muscle cars, I'm a lot more of a Max Wedge fan than I am of a Hemi fan. Primarily because I'm more of a street car guy, not a race car guy. If Dodge could have done something more in line with the LSLT, have some set of heads, call it a Max Wedge head, that flows 330 CFM, that you don't have to rely on two shaft-mounted rocker systems with sketchy valve train geometry, if they would have gone that route, it may have extended the life of the V8 for Dodge just in general. The Hemi nameplate is played out, quite frankly. And bringing in a Max Wedge nomenclature would be huge. First of all, it would make sense, and for a lot of folks, it would be a bit more descriptive for the type of engine that you're working with. The second thing is that it would be more thermodynamically efficient than the Hemi cylinder head configuration. The Hemi cylinder head configuration is extremely volumetrically efficient, but not from a thermodynamic point of view. It all has to do with how compression works and how flame fronts work when the kernel, which is when the spark plug pops, that initial flame front, as it propagates through the cylinder, it's not awesome in a Hemi, but it's incredibly volumetrically efficient. So that's why they work incredibly well with forced induction. That's a different story altogether. It has to do with, pumping efficiencies with compressors and how it fills cylinders. But the reality is that for most production-based engines, a canted valve system, which is kind of like a big block Chevy, if you're familiar with the old canted valve Fords, same thing, like it's basically a twisted Hemi, but a more flat combustion chamber, or a true wedge, like a max wedge style cylinder head, is going to be far better. And so because of that, if in the world of ifs, if the max wedge style of engine would come to play, that would be a lot more appealing to me. But getting rid of the Hemi is something that was just going to happen, guys. Technology had taken that engine as far as it could possibly go, but more importantly, fellas, fuel quality has taken that engine about as far as it can go. You can only compress so much air and so much fuel into one spot and have it not auto ignite. And well, this is a port injected engine. It's not direct injected. Like, people try to compare the Hemi to the Coyote or to the LT. Don't do it. You can't, because you're talking about two different fuel delivery systems. That's important when we're talking about total airflow. You've got a runner that's not also carrying fuel. It's only carrying air and a little bit of fuel for the very minor port injection that the Mustangs have to keep valves clean. But anytime you've got a direct injected engine, you can also, that fact that it's direct injection mitigates knock. And so because of all of that, for you can control when the fuel hits the combustion chamber. That's what helps it to mitigate knock. Means you can run a lot higher compression ratios, which means you can run significantly nastier camshaft profiles, especially if you have the ability to rock cams back, forth, side to side, the way that the Coyote can. And for you guys that don't realize how important that technology is for today's automobiles, just understand that the 5-liter Coyote makes 486 horsepower, which is more horsepower than the 6.2 liter. In other words, an engine that is better than 20% larger, and the Coyote's making the same horsepower, technically more, but you get the idea. But the ability to rock cams around and have really high compression ratios means that you can have a race cam profile where you want it under high load, high RPM, and a dump truck cam profile down low where you want very smooth idling, and at cruise where you want really high torque production and great economy. So the Hemi's got none of that. It's got the ability to rock back and forth, but the reality is that just rocking a cam back and forth just helps you adjust where that profile, where it's going to make power, down low with an advanced cam, or up top when you start to retard the cam up on the big end. Okay. That's great. That's fine. But that doesn't change the dynamics the way that the Coyote does, or that the way that variable cam technology does in the Hurricane engine. So this is what you need to understand, guys. I'm going to walk you through something, and I'm going to be doing this off the top of my head, but I'm going to be rattling off some mathematics for you guys, okay? When it comes to boost, one of the things you have to understand is we talk about the 6.2 liter like it's a big engine. We talk about the 5 liter like it's a high revving engine, or that it makes a lot of power all over the place. So let's talk about boost, and let's talk about, well, let's talk about all of it together. So a 6.2 liter Hemi or a 6.4 liter Hemi, talking about the Hellcat, or talking about the Scat Pack variants, compared to the Hurricane. Okay, so if you have, in general, we're going to talk in generalities here. Turbochargers are a stupid, sick little cheat code, but this is how it works. Turbochargers only sap power on the exhaust stroke. They don't sap any power on the power stroke. So that in and of itself is an interesting thing. A turbocharged car basically runs like a bigger naturally aspirated car with a bad exhaust system on it. Think of it like that for a minute, and that'll help to make what I'm about to say make sense. For every atmosphere of boost, you get a doubling, if you want to think of it that way, in air quotes, of displacement. So at 15 pounds of boost, an EcoBoost engine, which is the 3.5, is going to act like a 7-liter engine in terms of power output. 7 liters is about 420 odd cubic inches, and that engine makes about 400 horsepower. So it's like having a 400 horsepower 7-liter engine, if you will. Okay, well, we know that the HO Hurricane makes roughly almost 2 atmospheres of boost. What's an atmosphere? An atmosphere is basically 15 psi. That's normal aspiration. Like, you just sucked in 14.7 psi. So you have a 3 liter that has atmospheric pressure, 3 liters, atmosphere number 1 in boost, 6 liters, atmosphere number 2 in boost, 9 liters. That's like a 540 cubic inch engine. I want you to think about that for just a minute. It's the equivalent of having a 540 cubic inch engine that makes 1 horsepower per cubic inch. Allow that to sink in for just a minute. But 540 cubic inches making 1 horsepower per cubic inch, net rated, by the way, is what any car or truck would have with that engine in it. And if you can wrap your head around that, that's 9 liters versus 6.4, which is bigger, right? Think of it another way, though. This is how eerily efficient that engine is. 3 liters is roughly 180 cubic inches. If you take 180 plus 180 plus 180, that's 540. In other words, at 180 cubic inches, it's making 1 horsepower per cubic inch, if that were the case, because that's about right for a 3 liter, isn't it? I mean, not making a ton of power, but, for a fairly restricted 3 liter. Remember, exhaust restriction, you can literally go bam, bam, bam through the atmospheres and get the exact same power output that they're rating it at as a net output. That's ridiculous, fellas. Again, remember that the 3.5 liter EcoBoost rated at 400 horsepower, which is 400 horsepower for just a second, and then torque falls off. Factory rated, okay, fellas? I get it. I already know what you're thinking before you say it, but just ride with me here. That's freaking awesome. Okay, that's like 420 odd cubic inches making 400. That's less than a horsepower per adjusted cubic inch. The Hurricane is staying with that 1 horsepower per cubic inch through all of its mathematical, it's the circus that'll go through your head when you're thinking about this kind of stuff. That's how good it is. Okay, but what about the standard output at 430? Well, if I remember correctly, and the 540 is actually really even hard to explain because the math just goes bam, 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 bam right down the list. But it's making about, I think it's making less boost, but it is not as efficient with the lower boost. Or is it more efficient? It's about the same efficiency ratio either way. Let's just call it the same. Because I think you start to split hairs here. And I think that for the most part, what guys are going to miss is going to be the sound. What guys are going to miss is when you fire it up on a cold start, when the timing's super retarded, and you have that late firing of the mixture, and you get that blap coming out of the pipes. That's what guys are going to kind of miss or be looking for. But I think that moving forward, because technology is going to keep marching on, guys. And remember, before you start saying that the sky is falling, fellas, don't forget that, well, I'll put it to you like this. Back in the 80s, V8s were going away. V8s were going to be gone, gone, gone. There was not going to be another V8 made because emissions, because power output, and because cost and technology and all this other stuff. But when the technology for the little engines trickled into V8s, it basically put the V8s back in business. It was like zzz, clear, zzz. I guess you should clear them before you zit them. Anyway, you get the idea. And that revived the V8s. And again, now the V8s were so much more efficient. They got the same kind of fuel economy as 6 cylinders did, in some cases 4 cylinders did back in the day. We also have significant thanks to be given to the transmissions that are out there. It's not just the engine. We have overdrive, double overdrive, incredibly aggressive first, second, and third gear ratios in some cases that make these engines out to be a bit more of a rock star than maybe they would have been with the typical 3 or 4 or even 5-speed automatic. So there's that to consider. But I got to tell you guys, at this stage of the game, when you start putting the kind of power down that Hurricane is capable of putting down, and we know what kind of power the engine's going to make, we know about what it's going to weigh. I know what I've driven, guys. I know what I've driven in terms of that Grand Wagoneer, and it ain't no joke. And I kept thinking the entire time I was driving that truck, SUV, car, whatever you call it, 6,500 pounds. If you took 2,000 pounds out of it, and it was a car, could you imagine what that thing would run like? It would be amazing. Also, what about if that car were all-wheel drive? Now, I'm not saying there's any rumor or anything like that. I don't know anything about that, but let's say Dodge did something really like what they should have done when some other cars that are out there, but let's say they did something and did something really cool and plugged this thing in so it doesn't croak on us, fellas, and made the thing all-wheel drive. I mean, at that stage of the game, it's over with. It's absolutely over with. And, we'll see what happens. We'll see what's coming down the pike. I can tell you this, though. If I can get my hands on one of those newer H6 high output trucks, you can rest assured that I will do it because of one simple fact, guys. Two simple facts. First simple fact, that Grand Wagoneer that I drove in sport mode, the fact that I'm getting to here is the transmission tune was flawless. And when I say flawless, I mean it was about as perfect as you could ever hope for a high output, high performance transmission tune to function. Shifts were quick, absolutely perfect. The engine carried great on the big end, all of that. If that technology creeps into the truck, which if it doesn't, so help me, the rant will be heard. Like they will probably hear me in Dearborn. I will lose my mind. But I'd take off my glasses. It's like I had to turn down the radio to see something. I had to take my glasses off just to let the thought get through my head. Like I could not, I could not see clearly enough with these glasses. I had to go into like space vision or whatever. I could not imagine. I would anyway, it would be foolish for them to not have that technology in one of these trucks. But with the sport and the shifting and all that, unbelievable. It is something that I can't, when I put that afterglow video together for you guys, I don't think that I was conveying it properly. The solemn look on my face was, Hemi's gone. And I'm not even looking back at it. Like it's in the rearview mirror, like it's running after you. Please don't. I love it. And you're just looking ahead, trying to find the cigarette lighter. You're not even thinking about it. So, the second thing that I'm thinking of when I'm talking about that hurricane, E85, guys, direct injected. It's direct injected. E85, if you can make E85 work in a direct injected engine, the whole world opens up to you in terms of tuning and what you can get out of those engines. One of the reasons, guys, why Coyotes take so well to the Echo Ocho Cinco is because in the intake runner, because it doesn't really carry much fuel, that port injector is really only there to keep the valves clean. When you ramp the thing up on E85 takes up a lot of room in the intake runner, room that would normally be occupied by oxygen. When you have a direct injected engine, you suck in all the air that runner can bring in, and then you just sledgehammer it with all of the fuel that you can try to get it to burn. That's why they do so incredibly well on E85. It's one of the reasons why Hemis suck when you try to throw E85 at them. They don't make the power, I should say. I don't want to say they suck. They just don't make the kind of power that you would hope for, and that power drops down as you get further up into the RPM range. When you start to need more air, you can't get the more air because you have fuel taking up the room in the intake runner. Well, direct injection doesn't have that problem. Plus, Atmo engines, which is slang for naturally aspirated, are not forced induction applications. Port injection with forced induction, and you got a compressor that's cramming all of that fuel into the combustion chamber anyway. So the benefit is really there for a boosted application, but it ain't going to be there for your naturally aspirated Hemi. Don't even bother with it. Plus, your compression ratio is not high enough anyway. So anyway, getting back to the point, there are a couple of things in play for that Hurricane engine that would make it sick to death and will make you all but, if not absolutely, forget about the Hemi. That's what it was, the Hemi. That thing that we're all supposed to be in love with. Anyway, fellas, I've been going on for about 24, 25 minutes. Let me see what you guys are going on about. And it looks like you guys are getting after it. Hey, Rome is in. First up. Yo, what's up? Marco is in, my man. Robo, sad times ahead? Don't know. DM's got the cadence, got the bald guy with the shades and the flex. I like it. David is in. Ryan is in. Eric, good evening, my friend. Merry Christmas to you, my buddy. Skids, what's up, bro? Dude, so Skids took the T-Bird out today, as a matter of fact. I've been playing around. They've been working on the Cowie. Took the T-Bird out today and had a 20-mile-an-hour tailwind on the way out, had a 20-mile-an-hour headwind on the way back in. Anyway, she will do 110. I'll just leave it at that. Um, Rum said, I need to find a cheap V6 Challenger. Here's all I need to know. How the hell do I swap a 3.6 Pentastar car into a Hurricane HO? Guys, believe me when I tell you that kit will be coming. I don't know how to make it fit because of length, but believe it or not, the 3-liter HO is, I think it's only 4 or 5 inches longer than the V8. So there's got to be a way to make it work. Marco's downing on the Dodge cars. Skids, come on, same engine. Motorcycle greater than cage. I tell you what, so this is kind of funny. Today when I was out on the bird, the bike is starting to feel a lot smaller. And for you guys that don't know what that means, when you first get on a motorcycle, especially if it's something that is new to you, a lot of times bikes feel big. And the more you ride them and the more familiar you get with them and the more comfortable you get with them, the bike feels smaller. And it's a weird thing that your brain will do with motorcycles. You will at some point really have a mind like you will perceive the bike as another appendage at some point when you start riding, and it doesn't feel like that when the bike feels big. Yeah, you feel like it's a bit ungainly. But as you ride it more, the bike will literally in your head, it will shrink. It's a weird phenomenon, to the point where it's like, it's just hands and feet. Like it's just, anyway, the T-Bird, which is about a 700-pound barge with wheels, which I will do 110 miles an hour, by the way, and was still pulling when I got out of it. Big old girl hauls ass. Anyway, bikes starting to feel small, and I'm getting a little bit. When bikes start feeling small, you start riding them a little bit more aggressively too. And I had to catch myself today, just about ground a dang peg on that thing again. So I need to chill out with the T-Bird a little bit. Just she's a cruiser, but man, I get on that thing and it's just the sound of it, and it's just big, and I'm just really enjoying it. Marco's hanging out with Skids. Oh, right. I like the way the car's looking. Mopar went with poly heads and ball studs instead of the Gen 3. I tell you what, the funny thing is that there's no reason that they couldn't. Man, this is like a marketing thing. The problem is the original Hemi did really well. In fact, it made 1 horsepower per cubic inch. The 5.7 did. And I gotta say, it's kind of funny to me that they went with that architecture. And basically the Gen 3 Hemi is a Hemi cylinder head. It's a hemispherical cylinder head, but like with really a third of it on either side taken out for squish. It's there for compression. And it aids in efficiency, but you don't get all of it back. And it's just kind of a goofy cylinder head. It's not a bad cylinder head design. It flows air incredibly well, but there are some things that it could do differently. Skids, yes, Rebel and an Eco Diesel, which I'm ready to dump after my oil changes, I bet. Eric saying, this is why Dodge still needs to come back with another modern day V8 engine as an option to replace the Hemi V8. Just with more efficiency and power. Yeah, I mean, look, again, my thought, here's what, if I could put one together, and if they're going to stick with a 2-valve, about a 5.5 liter, 11-to-1 or 10.5-to-1 dual overhead cam, or go with a better cylinder head design and have a better intake manifold design to go along with it, with variable cam. I mean, I know that it's possible to do, although again, you start getting into some of the complexities of, I mean, you can engineer anything, so take it with a grain of salt, but there's got to be something better and something different that they could do with the V8 obviously make it dual fuel system, direct and port injected. And that would help things out a lot too. Ryan said, Professor, make us a modern poly ball stud. I bet it'd be a beast. Oh yeah. Um, any of the normal rocker type setups would be good, and it would add efficiency to it, and it would reduce cost. Skid saying, you don't have to sell me on a 6-cylinder turbo B. The EcoBoost F-150 is 320-ish to the wheel. That may be slightly generous. I mean, listen, they're really good at making mid-range torque. And I mean, that's just the way that those engines are. They're really good at what they were designed to do. Eric's hanging out with Ryan. 12 valve Cummins. Ooh, that'd be sick. Eric's hanging out with Skid. Skid saying, good guys, say goodbye to the Dodge V8s. It's over. Definitely miss the sound. Nothing sounds as sweet as the V8. True that. Ryan and Skid's hanging out with Eric. Let's see. Oh, Robo's saying, so we know hurricane-equipped trucks and SUVs are green-lighted, but we have no car confirmation with the above-mentioned drivetrain. Yeah. It's a hope, right? And so one of the things that a lot of folks are looking at is how do you maintain a brand and a brand identity without a car like the Challenger or the Charger? And realistically, how do you stay relevant as a performance or as a youth-oriented or as a spirit carrier? You know, that whole which brand has the soul for our company without something that is car and something that is hurricane powered. And I don't know if you guys know this too. Car for car, speaking of youth oriented, weren't we told that the Hornet was supposed to be like the next coming of the awesome car? And remember all that back in April of 2023, which we're still kind of in. Anyway, slowest selling cars for 2023, inventory currently on the ground. I think that the Hornet is number 5 or number 7, somewhere in that range on the list of top 10 worst selling cars. In other words, they have, I want to say, I could be wrong about this, but let's just, for lack of a better way of putting it, it's been a hot minute since I looked at the statistic, and I can't remember it exactly, but basically, inventory on the ground, if they were to never make another Hornet ever again until they ran out of Hornets, at the current sales pace, I want to say that they could, it's like a year or a year and a half could go by without making one new car before they would have to start making them again. In other words, nobody is buying them, and they're supposed to be a volume proposition, right? So that statistic is a little bit askew. Some cars are higher in demand because they're economy style cars, and the volume is greater, so that, you know, let's say 1,000 cars versus 20,000 cars would make a year's turn, if you will, in terms of sales. I think you know where I'm going with that. I don't want to really hang on that point that I'm making there, but I will say this. Whatever the case is, it's in the top 10 of worst selling cars, and nobody is buying them because why would you? Have you seen the thing? I mean, there's nothing exciting about it. So when you start to look at where this whole process is going, in terms of, you know, is the hurricane coming? The thought process, I should say, is the hurricane coming? Fellas, They can't afford for it not to get here because everything else with a Dodge badge on it, they can't give away. The only thing that's been selling for Dodge has been Challengers and Chargers, and the fact that those things are going away without an immediate and very well marketed replacement, without a passing of the torch moment, that's bad, man. That's about as bad of a flub that you can have in this industry. So, just saying, fellas. DM, thank you so much, my man. Merry Christmas to you too, buddy. Very much appreciate that. And Merry Christmas to all y'all. Oh yeah, we're coming up on almost Christmas. I should have worn my hat. But thank you so much, DM, buddy. I really do appreciate that. Very much. Thank you, sir. DM's been a part of this show for a long time. Oh, let me get back up with you guys. Thank you so much again, buddy. That's generous of you. Thank you, bud. But I'm just gonna have to pick a spot because I cannot figure out where I was earlier, guys. Let's see. Ryan is hanging out with Eric. Good to see you, Eric, as always. But the thing is, guys, is that yeah, Dodge can't survive without. And let me put it to you another way: Dodge, as a brand identity, cannot survive without a Charger, without a Challenger, or without a insert name here that is the soul bearer for Stellantis in that respect. At least not in the North American market, which is really where it counts, frankly. Oh, Skid saying, popped into a local Dodge dealer yesterday to look at a plum crazy Charger Super B. Saying he liked it. Very nice. Salesman confirmed the 2025 Ram will be H6 powered. Very nice. That's what I've heard. That's the rumor that's out there. So, Ryan saying here, not here. Ryan's liking that plum crazy. Yeah. Josh saying, yeah, history repeats itself, but it's a cop-out. Just add direct injection to the Hemi and make it bigger with twin turbos, high compression, same tech, more cubes, and no redesign. Yeah, and believe me, if they could get away with it, they probably would. Add all-wheel drive, which they absolutely need to at this stage of the game. Oh, this 23 Super B is probably the only the last call special sticker cars that piqued my interest. It's the only one that piqued mine, I'll tell you that. It's the only one that had marketable tech different from, the cars that preceded it. Excuse me. Oh, the all-wheel drive pursuit cars. Yeah, they launch hard. But yeah, that will make a difference. Oh, E-Force Edelbrock Supercharger. Yeah. It's one of my favorite combinations for the Hemi. And yeah, listen, on the street, guys, it's all about just getting the thing moving. And if you can't launch the thing, that's going to be all she wrote. I tell you what's going to be a scary truck. What'll be a real scary truck to deal with. My understanding is the H6 high output, you can get 321, 355s, or 392 gears. Let me tell you what I feel like is going to be a dirty little secret and something that will absolutely horrify pretty much any truck that's on the road. Would be a truck just like Stormy, four-wheel drive, high output inline six. That would mean that you could put the thing in 4 high, stall it up, and absolutely, I mean, it wouldn't spin. It would be a monster off the line. I don't know what it would run in the quarter. I would say probably mid 13s. Should be no problem. Bone stock in the summertime. That thing could actually, with a little bit of work, be a low 13-second, high 12-second truck with not a lot of thought put into it, potentially anyway. So I'm just saying, fellas, you start looking at what are the possibilities and what are the performance envelopes of these newer engines. I got to tell you, yeah, the Hemi's going away. They're not going to redevelop a new engine. At least it doesn't look like it. It'd be cool if they did. And again, God, this is back in, when was it, guys? We started hearing about this in 2017. That's a whole ass lot of years ago. We started hearing about a different V8 back then. And, the Hemi's going away. It did its thing, but it's not efficient anymore. And so they're going to develop this new thing. And it's about 5.5 liters. And was supposed to be about a 10% bump in power all the way around and be a 5.5 liter engine. It never showed up. I think it was going to be a dual overhead cam platform too. Nothing ever came of it. So, and that was all happening when they were talking about switching platforms completely. Let's not forget that back then, you got to remember 2018, that was the last year for the Challenger and the Charger. The platform was supposed to be dead in 2018. And we got it for another 5 years. So just consider that as well. To me, maybe, I don't know. I don't know this, but if I'm thinking it through, if you're Dodge and you're looking at a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan, and you go, look, we know what we're looking at in terms of regulations. We're not going to get there with a new V8 either way we look at it. Not to make the power anyway. What else can we develop? Well, if we develop a 3-liter 6-cylinder, we get turbos, and turbos equal displacement, and we can get way more power out of that, far more power dense, higher horsepower per kilo. In other words, for every pound that the engine weighs versus how much horsepower does it make. That's an aviation stat for you, but they use it in cars too. You can kind of see the clocks turning, man. It's like, well, if we develop a V8, that's going to be a waste because we could have just developed and put all that money into the 6-cylinder. Not that you couldn't have developed the V8 too, and not that the V8 wouldn't be more powerful if you added turbos, if that's even something you would consider. So there's a lot to unpack with all of this. Cost is always an option, or at least a factor, I should say, when you're optioning different power plants. And this is what they came up with. Rome, no, I didn't see Speedy's video at all, which is a bummer for him if that's what they did to his car. I hate to see that. Hate to hear of it. Skids, 110 is great for the beefy T-Bird, dude. And I wasn't even tucked. I was just hanging on to it. And I just looked down at cresting 100. I was like, I'll hold on to it for a little bit more. 105, I'll hold on to it for a second more. 110, I'm going to go ahead and roll out of it now. It's a good thing that bike's got really good brakes. The rear disc, I kid you not, is as big as some bikes' front discs. And I rolled off the throttle and just kind of rode into the brakes just a touch, and it just, came right back down to about 75. And that thing is just thumping along. So, and what's funny too is that I get more excited in a way, when I blast one of the parallel twins over 100 miles an hour. Obviously the Bonneville will get there a little bit easier, but The T-Bird does it too. I mean, if you're to line them both up from a roll, yeah, the Bonneville would probably walk away from the T-Bird, but it better. But they both have the same horsepower, but obviously less torque. But the Bonneville is a lot lighter, like a whole lot lighter. Eric's saying, good evening, good evening. Man, I don't know. DM's asking when am I going to set the AT on the bike so I don't drag parts. The sag. So the sag is set. In fact, I had to bump the rear up in the Bonneville because it was set full soft. The T-Bird is set full firm, and that's the only way I will ride that bike. I do not like so with the Bonneville and the T-Bird having two shocks and spring assemblies in parallel, that creates some weird things that can happen, especially in turns, especially if you have the spring rate too soft in the rear. The two springs want to act differently than each other, or they can anyway. And theoretically, if you're leaned over and you're going around a corner, the centripetal force is acting on the springs in the same way. That's not exactly true though. And so anyway, the idea with motorcycles is you run the rear kind of stiff and you run the front kind of soft, and it allows you better weight transfer onto the front tire in cornering. And it allows it to be a little bit more flickable and can be a little bit more stable too in certain circumstances. So anyway, that's the way the Daytona is set up with a really soft front end to get that thing to just squat in corners. Lots of weight transfer to the front on that bike. But anyway, the sag on the Cowie is there's a couple of things up with that bike. I've got it about where I want it. It's a little bit much. It's about 40 millimeters in front and in back, which isn't bad, but I would prefer a different spring, but it's not hurting anything. I'm about at the limit of what I would trust the spring in that shock for. And I get to have a lot of fun with it, so it doesn't really bother me too much. And I gotta I've got to be cool with the Cowie because I end up just riding the thing like it's my old track bike, and that's not what that bike is. But it kind of goats you into playing with it in a way like that. So anyway, oh, by the way, yes, the Brock's exhaust came in, so be on the lookout. The video for that, I was doing a bit of an install video, and it sucked. That video just did not really, the cadence of it just did not get moving. I could not get that video really going. But I will be bringing you guys some fun facts, so be on the lookout for that. Matter of fact, I'm waiting. I've got about 10 minutes, and I'm going to have to sign off, guys, but I'm waiting for my ECU to show up. So if that's the case, then fantastic. I should be able to get you guys some videos of that thing running with the new exhaust on it. But it does have the Brock's exhaust. It is solid black. I was able to work out a deal with them where it's got no badging on it, mainly because of the look that I was going for. I'm trying to mimic a bike that my dad had, and a kind of a look that his bike had. Now mine is a cafe, his wasn't, but you kind of get the idea. Some little nuances here and there, bringing it in styling cues from my dad. My dad had an old Z1 with a black Kirker exhaust, but it was all black. So that's what I wanted to replicate with this setup. Oh, right, a wedged hemisphere. Oh, DM, yeah. That's what I'm working on with those. But actually, I've got them set up pretty nice now. Sovereign is in. I got the flex with the bald guy in the shades. Wait, that's a coyote? Eric's checking in with Sovereign. Good to see you. Merry Christmas to you fellas. Thank you again, DM. I appreciate it, brother. So yeah, Racer X. So guys, and that's another thing. Guys, keep an eye out for all of your guys that are campaigning Demon 170s. Please support those guys. Racer X, good buddy of mine. You guys know him and I have been friends for years. Support him, support Demonology, support the guys that are supporting the brand. They need your help. They need your support. They're bringing you this content at a significant cost to them. So help them out, support those guys, because believe me, if yours truly had one, I'd be bringing you guys already know the setup that I would have built anyway. So it'd have been Shalandra #2, man. If I could only built one. Anyway, support those guys. Skids, SK in the house. Eric saying good evening to a DM. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you, my friend. Because the Hornet's a rebadge alpha and nobody wants it because it's uglier than the alpha. True words, my friend. That thing looks like a monkey's ass. And the thing about it too, what makes it just all pink and bloated for me, the marketing. I could have done well enough with it just existing without the horrible commercials. I just gross. Yeah, right, exactly. Where's the damn Hornet GLH that I would poke my head out for? Yeah, exactly. Where is it? It doesn't exist. It's not, it doesn't, is that a direct connection thing? And if it is, why do we not have any, there's no marketing for it. Skid saying Dodge did it to themselves when they unveiled the Hornet last year. Yeah, they did lay a pile, didn't they? Eric, yes. So OC Motivator, 100%. Yeah, my buddy, dude, listen, everybody out there, OC's got one, Racer X has got one, Demonology has got one. The guys, the OGs that have been doing this, bringing you guys content, the OGs that have been racing these things and talking to you guys about these things and working through stuff with you guys on these cars, support those guys, because, if anybody's going to fly a flag, you want it to be somebody that's of the brand, if you will. Ryan, I'll tell you what, it's funny. So Dodge would have kept the Magnum wagon. I actually had a long conversation. Now, this is going back a ways. This is back in 2016. I had a long conversation with one of the marketing guys with Dodge, one of the higher up guys. He was real candid, real upfront with me, super down to earth guy. And you could tell that he was frustrated with some stuff. He was actually over Viper at the time. In fact, I got offered a smoking deal on a Viper that I should have. I cannot believe I didn't take the deal. I should have taken it. I just couldn't afford it at the time. But anyway, getting to it, I asked him about the Magnum, and he said, well, did you ever buy one? I said, nah, I never bought one. He said, yeah, you and a whole lot of people said a lot of people liked the Magnum, but not enough people bought them. And he was saying, look, if people bought them, we'd still make them. And that was when they had canceled it. So, Skids, the GLH is only through direct connection, if I remember correctly. Maybe it is. But that should be part of the marketing. Your Hornet can be GLH'd with your power broker at your direct connection. Here's your direct connection. I mean, sell it to me. Look, part of marketing isn't just sales. Marketing is creating a demand. Marketing is letting you know that a product exists. That's the core of marketing. In fact, the 4 P's: product, placing, pricing, and promotion. Product is the first one. Placing, pricing, promotion of nothing. It's the product first. You got to know about it before you can place it, price it, or promote it. Well, it's something, right? Say, well, it's something at least. Josh, yeah, pretty bad. It's bad. Eric saying good evening to Josh. Noab is in, my bro. What's up? Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everyone. Yep. Sovereign's like an OC's green swinger. I like the swinger. Guys, let me tell you something. The swinger's a lot better looking car in person than it is in pictures. Josh saying EPA sucks. EPA is weird. It does. The EPA is weird because I don't think that there's a lot of consistency there. Eric's hanging out with Sovereign. Yeah, Racer X 0 to 60, 1.77 seconds. That's nutty, isn't it? Skid saying agreed about the green swinger. Pretty car. Yeah, X did some racing recently with a 1.7. Interesting to catch the vid. Check it out, guys. It's coming up. You're not going to want to miss it. Josh saying C170 was Dodge's bang. They did it right, which they did. Kind of wish they dropped their 1500 variant in it just to rub it in Ford's face, but hey, not complaining. I don't know that it would have passed, unfortunately. Or I don't know that the emissions equipment will be able to manage that. But if it could, anything can be engineered. Holy shit, a dual overhead cam poly with a cam phasing, my God, that thing would be more room on the head. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's more. Okay, if you want to build a big two-valve engine, by today's standards, head flow, you don't need a Hemi for head flow. Look at the LS3. Look at the LT family of engines. You don't need a Hemi for head flow. So you can have a canted valve wedge making or providing 330, 350 CFM of airflow in much the same way that the LS7 heads, which is just a straight wedge. LS7 heads outflow Hemi heads. Doesn't matter what Hemi heads you're talking about. And have unbelievable upside in terms of making power. So, this gives more power. I'm just kind of scrolling through here, guys. I'm about to have to check out here in just a minute. DM's asking, B, when are you going to sprinkle some magic on Racer X's 170? Racer X's 170, he's going to be running that car in as delivered form, or in other words, in as accepted form. And there, I'll put it to you like this: the OS that's in that car is really good. I could maybe make some changes on the transmission side that might get it somewhere, but I don't know that I would be able to affect it by as much as I was with some of the more mildly tuned cars. Dodge did not play when it comes to that car. Plus, it has, in essence, variable torque management that is driver controllable, which is huge to speak of. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in that car, guys, that is, it takes the tuner out of it. DM the Hornet for the Brotherhood of Soy. God damn. DM, I have not. That is the funniest thing I have heard in a long ass time. Oh my God. Fake tits in a tuck. All right, let's get back over here. Oh, guys, check out OC Motivator's video. He just dropped just a little bit ago on his 170. And guys, with that, I got to wrap it up. I got to get, see if that ECU is showing up. Hopefully it has, so I can get this bike fired up. But with that, guys, listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. If you're going to sit it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. And with that, fellas, that's a wrap. We'll catch you on the next one. Adios.